Welcome, friend. You can close your eyes now. Let your body settle into wherever you are. There's nothing you need to prove here. No one to impress. No performance required. For the next hour and a half, you have permission to simply exist. Not as who you think you should be, not as who others expect you to be. Just as you are, right now, in this moment. If you're here tonight, you might be carrying something heavy. Maybe you just achieved something, and instead of celebrating, you feel like a fraud. Maybe you're waiting for someone to discover you're not as capable as they think. Maybe success feels less like triumph and more like a lie you're desperately trying to maintain. Perhaps you lie awake, replaying every small mistake, every moment you stumbled, wondering when they'll finally see through you. If this is you, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're not alone. And tonight, you don't have to carry this alone anymore. What you're feeling has a name: imposter syndrome. And millions of accomplished, capable people feel exactly what you're feeling right now. Tonight, we'll explore an ancient teaching that might change how you see yourself. Not as a fixed identity you have to defend, but as something far more fluid, far more free. The Buddha discovered something profound about the nature of self, about worth, about belonging. And modern science is now proving he was right. By the end of our time together, you may find your breath has slowed, your body has softened, and that voice that says you're not enough has finally, gently quieted. You don't need to force anything. You don't need to achieve anything, not even sleep. Just be here. Let's begin. Picture this. You just got promoted, or landed that important client, or received praise for your work. Everyone's congratulating you. Your inbox is full of well wishes. Your phone buzzes with celebration. But inside, there's this voice. Quiet at first, then louder. They made a mistake. If they really knew me, they wouldn't have chosen me. I just got lucky. It's only a matter of time before they see the truth. At night, you lie here in the dark, and the performance stops. The confident smile you wore all day fades. And you're left with the replay. That meeting where you stumbled over your words. That email you sent that could have been worded better. That question you couldn't answer. Your chest feels tight. Your jaw clenched without you realizing. Your mind scrolls through evidence, building its case. See? You're not as smart as they think. You scroll through social media. Everyone else seems so certain, so confident, so real. Their accomplishments look effortless. Their success looks deserved. And you feel like you're performing, playing a role, pretending to be someone you're not, waiting for the moment when someone pulls back the curtain and sees you're not who they think you are. Maybe you work twice as hard as everyone else, staying late, arriving early, checking your work 3 times, because you can't let anyone see you struggle. Maybe you say yes to everything, afraid that saying no will expose your inadequacy. Maybe you deflect compliments, change the subject when someone praises you, because hearing it makes that voice scream louder. They don't really mean it. If they knew the real you, they wouldn't say that. This exhaustion you feel, it's not just from the work. It's from the constant vigilance, the constant performance, the weight of maintaining an image you're terrified of losing. If this feels familiar, I want you to know something important. This feeling, this voice, this fear, it has a name: imposter syndrome. And it's not a sign that you actually are a fraud. It's a sign that you're human. Right now, at this very moment, there are doctors lying awake wondering if they really know enough to save lives. Lawyers questioning if they deserve their position. Teachers wondering if they're fooling their students. Artists thinking their work is a fluke. CEOs terrified their teams will discover they're making it up as they go. The more you achieve, the louder this voice can become. Not because you're actually incompetent, but because you're aware of how much you don't know. This is the paradox. The people who feel like frauds are often the most capable because they're conscious enough to see the complexity of what they're doing. Real frauds rarely doubt themselves. But somewhere, long ago, you learned something that wasn't true. You learned that your worth equals what you produce. Your value equals what you achieve. Your right to exist depends on being perfect, being certain, being beyond criticism. Maybe it was a parent whose love felt conditional, whose approval you had to earn. Maybe it was a culture that measured you by grades, by rankings, by accomplishments. Maybe it was a moment of failure that felt so shameful you vowed never to be vulnerable again. Whatever it was, that wound is still here. And now, no amount of success can convince that frightened part of you that you're enough. Every achievement just raises the stakes. Every promotion just means further to fall. Every compliment just means more to lose. The voice gets louder because the fear gets bigger. But here's what matters. Here's what I need you to hear. This belief that you have to earn your right to exist, that you have to prove your worth, that you have to be perfect to belong. It's not a truth. It's a story. A story you learned so young you thought it was reality. But stories can change, and people have found a way through this. Not by achieving more, not by finally proving themselves, but by discovering something the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. Something that changes everything. Let me tell you about someone who discovered this truth in a way that transformed her life. Her name was Jordan, and 3 years ago, she was exactly where you are now. Lying awake at night, successful on paper, terrified inside. This is her story, and through her story, you might recognize your own path forward. Jordan was 36 years old when she made partner at one of the most prestigious law firms in Boston, Ivy League education, top of her class at Harvard Law. A career trajectory that looked from the outside like pure success. But every morning, Jordan would arrive at the office 2 hours before anyone else. Not because she was behind on work, but because She needed to make sure no one would see her struggle. She'd reread briefs 3 times before filing them. Practice presentations alone in the conference room, rehearsing every word. Stay late to triple-check work her colleagues would have submitted hours ago. Her assistant once said, "You work harder than anyone here." Jordan smiled and said, "I just want to do a good job." But inside, the truth was different. "I have to work this hard because I'm not as smart as them. I'm just better at hiding it." At night, she'd lie in bed, her mind replaying the day's interactions like a prosecutor building a case. Did I sound stupid when I said that in the meeting? Did they notice I hesitated before answering? Why did that senior partner look at me that way? When will they realize I don't actually belong here? Her therapist had a name for it: imposter syndrome. Her partner called it perfectionism. Jordan called it the truth. She wasn't as brilliant as her colleagues thought. She was just working 3 times harder to compensate for what she lacked. And the exhaustion is becoming unbearable. Then one afternoon, her mentor, a senior partner she deeply admired, asked her to coffee. Jordan's stomach dropped. This is it. She's figured it out. She's going to tell me I'm not cut out for this. They sat down at a quiet cafe, and her mentor looked at her with an expression Jordan couldn't quite read. "I need to tell you something," she said. Jordan braced herself. "When I made partner 15 years ago, I spent the first year waiting to be fired." Jordan stared. "You? But you're so confident. You always know what to say." Her mentor smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "No, I was terrified. Every single day I thought, today's the day they'll discover I'm not brilliant, just good at pretending. I'd go home and my husband would find me crying in the bathroom, convinced I'd be exposed." Jordan felt something shift. "But you're one of the best lawyers I've ever seen." Her mentor reached across the table. "Jordan, the voice that tells you you're not enough, it's not telling you the truth about your abilities. It's telling you the truth about a wound. A place where, long ago, you learned that your worth was conditional. That love, approval, belonging, they all had to be earned. And no amount of earning ever feels like enough." That conversation changed something for Jordan. She started paying attention to the voice. Where did it come from? When did it get so loud? And she remembered. 4th grade, bringing home a test. 92%. An A-. Her father barely looking up from his paper. Why not 100? What happened to the other 8 points? 5th grade, 2nd place in the spelling bee. Her mother's tight smile. Well, there's always next year. High school, valedictorian, full scholarship to an Ivy League school. Her father finally proud. Now that's what I expect from you. She'd learned it young. Your worth is your performance. Love is conditional. You're only valuable when you're perfect. And now, decades later, that voice still sounded like her father's. You're disappointing me. You're not good enough. Why didn't you do better? Jordan started a practice her therapist suggested. Every night before sleep, she'd place a hand on her heart and say 3 things. I am not my achievements. I am not my mistakes. I exist, and that's enough. At first, her mind screamed in protest. Liar! You have to prove it. You can't just exist. But she kept saying it, night after night, week after week, and slowly, something began to shift. She started noticing when the voice arose, "You're not good enough." It didn't sound like truth. It sounded like fear, old fear, a child's fear of losing love. She started talking back to it gently. Thank you for trying to protect me. Thank you for pushing me to work hard. But I don't need you to drive me anymore. I'm safe now. I'm enough now. 2 years later, Jordan is still a partner, still working hard, but something fundamental has changed. She doesn't arrive 2 hours early anymore. She makes mistakes now and doesn't spiral into shame. She asks for help when she needs it, without feeling like it's an admission of incompetence. She speaks up in meetings without rehearsing for hours beforehand. And when that voice arises, "You don't belong here," she recognizes it. Oh, there's my father's voice again. But I'm not a child anymore, and I don't need his approval to exist. She told me recently I'm a better lawyer now, not because I work harder, because I'm not performing anymore. I'm just showing up as myself. And that's enough. Jordan's story teaches us something crucial. Imposter syndrome isn't really about your competence. It's about a wound, a place where love felt conditional, where approval had to be earned. And healing doesn't come from achieving more. It comes from recognizing that the voice judging you isn't even yours. Now, Jordan's path was one of recognizing an internalized voice. But sometimes, imposter syndrome looks different. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus was 42 when I spoke with him. Founder and CEO of a tech startup in Seattle. 50 employees, Series B funding. On paper, a successful entrepreneur. But Marcus had a secret. He spent every day in back-to-back meetings, speaking with authority about strategy, roadmaps, market positioning. And inside, a voice whispered constantly, "You have no idea what you're doing. Real CEOs know what they're talking about. You're making this up as you go. One bad quarter and everyone will see you're a fraud." Marcus had started his company almost by accident. He'd built something people wanted, raised some money, hired a team, and suddenly he was supposed to be a leader, a visionary, someone who had answers. But he didn't have answers. He had questions, doubts, uncertainty, and he thought that meant he wasn't qualified. Every decision felt like a gamble. Every strategy felt like he was guessing. He'd read business books late into the night, trying to find the secret, the thing real CEOs knew that he didn't. But the books just made him feel more inadequate. They made it sound easy, obvious, like there was a clear path, and he felt lost. Then he attended a founders' retreat. 20 CEOs, all running successful companies. One evening, after a few drinks, the facilitator asked a question. How many of you feel like you're making it up as you go? Marcus stayed quiet, afraid to admit it. But then, one by one, hands went up. A founder whose company had just gone public. A CEO who'd been running her business for 10 years. An entrepreneur who'd successfully exited 2 startups. All of them raised their hands. The facilitator smiled. Welcome to leadership. Everyone is making it up as they go. The only difference is whether you're honest about it. Marcus felt something crack open. You mean it's not just me? The room laughed, not unkindly. One founder said, I spent 3 years thinking I was the only one who didn't have it figured out. Turns out, nobody does. We're all just doing our best with incomplete information. Another added, the ones who pretend to have all the answers are either lying or delusional. Probably both. That night changed Marcus. He realized he'd been trying to perform certainty because he thought real leaders were certain. But certainty is an illusion. Every decision is a bet. Every strategy is a hypothesis. The business landscape changes so fast that yesterday's answers don't work today. Real leadership isn't knowing. It's being willing to not know and showing up anyway. It's saying, I don't have all the answers, and that's okay. Let's figure this out together. Marcus started practicing something radical: honesty. In his next board meeting, when asked about a strategic decision, instead of performing confidence, he said, honestly, I'm not certain. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's the data I have. Here's what I'm uncertain about. What do you all think? The room went quiet. Then, one board member said, thank you for saying that. Let's work through it together. Marcus started bringing this honesty to his team. I don't know became okay to say. Let's experiment became more common than let's execute the plan. And something unexpected happened. His team became more honest too, more creative, more engaged, because they didn't have to pretend anymore either. Marcus told me recently, I'm a better CEO now than when I was trying to be perfect. Not because I have more answers, because I stopped pretending I needed to have them all. The companies that thrive aren't the ones with leaders who know everything. They're the ones with leaders who can say, I don't know. Let's find out. Marcus's story teaches us this. You don't have to be certain to be worthy of your role. You don't have to have all the answers to be a leader. You just have to be willing to show up as yourself, uncertainty and all. Now, both Jordan and Marcus discovered something about the voice that said they weren't enough. But there's another layer to imposter syndrome. Sometimes it's not just about performance or certainty. It's about belonging. Let me tell you about Aisha. Aisha was 29, a PhD student at Cambridge University studying post-colonial literature. She was the first person in her family to go to college, the first to leave her small town in northern England, the first to sit in rooms like these, ancient university halls, surrounded by people who seemed to belong there effortlessly. Aisha sat in seminars, listening to her peers speak. They had a way of talking, casual but confident, referencing theorists and texts like old friends. Their parents were professors, writers, academics. They'd gone to private schools where critical thinking was taught from childhood. They seemed to just belong. And Aisha felt like an imposter in a way that had nothing to do with her intelligence. She was brilliant. Her writing was insightful, her analysis sharp. But she didn't sound like them. Her accent marked her as working class. Her references were different. Her way of seeing the world came from lived experience they'd only read about. She'd stay silent in seminars, terrified that if she spoke, her difference would betray her. They'd hear her accent and think she's only here because of diversity quotas. She doesn't really belong. At night, she'd lie awake, wondering if she'd made a mistake. Maybe I'm not cut out for this world. Maybe I should go back home. Then, one afternoon, her advisor asked to meet with her. Aisha's heart sank. She knows. She's going to tell me I'm not PhD material. But her advisor said something unexpected. Aisha, I've noticed you don't speak much in seminars. Aisha looked down. I don't always have something valuable to contribute. Her advisor leaned forward. That's not true. Your written work is some of the most original thinking I've seen in years. But you're silent in class. Why? Aisha hesitated. Then, finally, I don't sound like them. I didn't go to the right schools. I don't have the same background. I feel like an outsider. Her advisor was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Aisha, you bring a perspective no one else in that room has. You've lived the realities that others only theorize about. That's not a deficit. That's your contribution. You don't need to sound like them to belong. You belong because you're here, because you earned your place. And your difference, your unique lens, that's not something to hide. It's your offering. Those words stayed with Aisha. She started asking herself a different question. Not, do I belong? But, who decided what belonging sounds like? Who decided that sounding like you went to Eton means you're intelligent? Who decided that working class accents are less valid in academic spaces? She started seeing it clearly. The voice that said she didn't belong wasn't hers. It was an internalized gatekeeper, a set of class assumptions she'd absorbed from a culture that valued certain backgrounds over others. And she didn't have to accept it. She started speaking up in seminars, not in their accent, in hers. not referencing the same theorists they did, bringing in voices from her community, perspectives they'd never considered. At first, it felt terrifying. But then, something shifted. Her peers started listening differently, asking her questions, saying, "I never thought of it that way." Her research, informed by her lived experience, started breaking new ground, and she realized, "I don't belong in spite of my difference. I belong because of it." Aisha told me recently, "I used to think I had to erase myself to belong. Now I know the self I was trying to erase was the most valuable thing I brought." Aisha's story teaches us this. You don't need to make yourself smaller to fit in. You don't need to erase your difference to belong. Your unique perspective, your particular background, your specific way of seeing, that's not a flaw. It's your gift. Notice what Jordan, Marcus, and Aisha all discovered. The voice that said they weren't enough came from somewhere outside them. Jordan's father. Marcus's assumption about what real CEOs should be. Aisha's internalized class gatekeepers. They were all carrying voices that weren't their own, defending identities that didn't fit, trying to prove something that didn't need proving. And the freedom came not from achieving more, but from recognizing the voice isn't the truth. It's a wound, and wounds can heal. This is where the Buddha's teaching becomes profound. Because 2,500 years ago, he saw something revolutionary about the nature of self, about identity, about the stories we carry. Something that modern neuroscience is now confirming. Let's explore what he discovered. Think about the 3 stories you just heard. Jordan, trying to prove she was smart enough, capable enough, worthy of her position. Marcus, trying to prove he was certain enough, leader enough, visionary enough. Aisha, trying to prove she belonged, that she was academic enough, polished enough, the right kind of person. They were all trying to prove a fixed identity. I am a competent lawyer. I am a confident CEO. I am someone who belongs in this space. But what if there's no fixed you to prove? What if the entire struggle is built on a misunderstanding about what you actually are? This is what the Buddha discovered, and it changes everything. The Buddha's journey began with his own form of imposter syndrome. He was a prince, raised in luxury, sheltered from suffering. One day, he left the palace walls and saw the truth of human existence for the first time. Aging, sickness, death. And he realized, I've been living a lie. Everything I thought I was, prince, sheltered, protected, it's not real. It's a constructed identity. He left everything, seeking the truth beneath the construction. For years, he tried extreme practices, fasting until his body was skeletal, meditating until exhaustion, trying to prove he was disciplined enough, devoted enough, spiritual enough. And then, one night, sitting under a tree, he stopped trying. He simply sat. And in that stillness, he saw something profound. The Buddha taught something called anatta, often translated as no self. But that translation confuses people. It sounds like the Buddha is saying you don't exist. That's not it. What he's saying is this: there is no fixed, unchanging, solid essence that is you. Let me explain. The Buddha used this metaphor. Imagine a chariot. Is the wheel the chariot? No. Is the axle the chariot? No. Is the frame the chariot? No. The seat? No. So where is the chariot? The chariot is a collection of parts, assembled together, given a name. But there's no single thing you can point to and say, this is the chariot. The chariot is a process, a temporary arrangement. Change one part, it's still somewhat a chariot. Replace every part over time. Is it the same chariot? You are like the chariot. You're not one fixed thing. You're a collection of constantly changing parts. Thoughts that arise and pass, emotions that come and go, sensations in your body, never static, memories that shift each time you recall them, roles you play, child, professional, friend, partner, each one partial, beliefs that evolve, even your cells replaced over years. Where in all of this is the fixed, unchanging you? There isn't one. You is a verb, not a noun. You are a process of becoming, not a fixed state of being. Now here's why this matters for imposter syndrome. When you think, I'm not really a lawyer, I'm not really a CEO, I'm not really someone who belongs here, you're assuming there's a real version, a fixed, authentic identity you need to match. But there is no real lawyer. There's no essential CEO. There's no fixed definition of someone who belongs. There's just a person, showing up in this moment, doing their best, learning as they go. That's all anyone is. Jordan thought, I'm not really smart enough. But smart is not a fixed thing you either are or aren't. It's a quality that fluctuates, context-dependent, moment to moment. Marcus thought, I'm not a real CEO, but CEO is a role, not an identity, a temporary arrangement of responsibilities, not a solid self. Aisha thought, I don't belong. But belonging is not about matching a fixed template. It's about showing up as you are in this moment. When you stop trying to defend a fixed identity, when you stop trying to prove you are something solid and unchanging, the anxiety dissolves. Because there's nothing to defend. You're a process, always changing, always becoming. And that's not a problem. That's freedom. The Buddha also taught something else, something that directly addresses the wound at the heart of imposter syndrome. He taught that every being has what's called Buddha nature. Now, this doesn't mean everyone is enlightened. It means your worth, your value, your right to exist is inherent, not earned, not achieved, not dependent on performance, inherent. You exist, therefore you have worth. That's it. In the West, we've gotten this completely backwards. We think the formula is achieve, prove your worth, then you can rest. Get the degree, then you're valuable. Make partner, then you're worthy. Build the company, then you matter. But the Buddha saw it differently. You already have worth. Now you're free to act. This is the liberation. You don't have to audition for your own life. You don't have to earn your right to take up space. You already belong to existence itself, simply because you're here. Now, you might be thinking, this is beautiful philosophy, but is it real? Is there any evidence that the self is actually fluid, not fixed? Here's what's remarkable. Modern neuroscience is proving exactly what the Buddha taught. Let me share 3 areas of research. First, the narrative self. Neuroscientist Michael Gazzaniga studied split brain patients, people whose brain hemispheres were surgically separated. He discovered something astonishing. The left hemisphere has what he called the interpreter. It's constantly creating stories about who you are, why you did what you did, what kind of person you are. And here's the key. When Gazzaniga gave these patients conflicting information to each hemisphere, the interpreter made up stories, constructed explanations that weren't true, but felt true. The self you think is solid, I am this kind of person, I'm not that kind of person, is actually a story your brain is constantly constructing. It's not a fact, it's a narrative. And narratives can change. Your brain is literally making up who you are, moment to moment, based on incomplete information and past patterns. The I am statements you tell yourself. I'm a fraud. I'm not smart enough. I don't belong. These aren't truths about a fixed self. They're stories, and stories are flexible. Second, imposter syndrome research. Dr. Pauline Clance, who first named imposter syndrome in the 1970s, has spent decades studying it. Her research shows something crucial. 70% of high-achieving people experience imposter syndrome at some point. 70%. And here's what's fascinating. It's not correlated with actual incompetence. In fact, the most competent people often feel it most intensely. Why? Because they're aware of how much they don't know. They see the complexity of their field. They recognize their limitations. Real frauds. People who are actually incompetent rarely doubt themselves. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with low ability overestimate their competence. People with high ability underestimate it. So if you feel like an imposter, it's often a sign that you're competent enough to recognize what you don't know. The feeling is backwards. It's not evidence of your inadequacy. It's evidence of your awareness. Third, self-compassion research. Dr. Kristin Neff at the University of Texas has studied self-compassion for over 20 years. Her research shows something that contradicts everything we've been taught. People who practice self-compassion, who say to themselves, "I'm allowed to be imperfect. I'm allowed to struggle. I'm human and that's okay," these people perform better, not worse. Better. They're more motivated, not less. More resilient, not weaker. More willing to take on challenges, not more complacent. Why? Because they stop wasting enormous amounts of energy defending a fragile identity. When you believe your worth is conditional, you have to be perfect. You spend so much energy hiding mistakes, avoiding risks, maintaining an image. But when you know your worth is inherent, you're free to learn, to grow, to take risks, to be human. The Buddha was right. Let go of defending a fixed self, and you become free to actually live. So what does this mean for you, lying here tonight? It means this. That voice, "I'm a fraud. I'm not good enough. I don't belong." It's trying to defend an identity that doesn't even exist. You're not a fraud, because there's no fixed real you to be false to. You're not inadequate, because there's no solid standard of adequacy. You don't not belong, because belonging isn't about matching a template. You are a human being, a process, constantly changing, constantly learning, constantly becoming. And your worth doesn't depend on any of it. You exist. That's enough. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to defend it. It just is. Now, this isn't just an idea to think about. It's something you can practice, something you can experience directly. Not as a belief, but as a lived reality. Let me show you how. Before we begin practicing, let's talk about what makes practice actually work. Because I know what your mind might be doing right now. It's already trying to turn this into another thing you have to be good at, another performance, another test you might fail. So let me say this clearly. First, you don't need to believe any of this yet. Your mind might still be insisting, but I really am a fraud. That's okay. Practice isn't about forcing yourself to believe something. It's about creating space for a different experience. Second, this isn't about positive thinking. We're not replacing "I'm a fraud" with "I'm amazing." We're learning to see that both are just thoughts, and you are the awareness that can hold both without believing either. Third, be patient with yourself. You've carried this voice, "You're not enough," for years, maybe decades. It won't dissolve overnight. But every moment you practice, you're planting a seed. And seeds grow in their own time. Progress, not perfection. That's the only rule. Now, let's begin. The first practice is something you can do right now, lying here in this moment. It's called inquiry, not analyzing, not solving, just inquiring. Let's do this together. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Take a breath. Now ask yourself this question. Who am I? Not who you think you should be. Not who others think you are. Just who am I right now in this moment? Notice what arises. Maybe a role appears. I'm a parent. I'm a professional. I'm a partner. Just notice it. Don't judge it. Don't push it away. Just see it as what it is. A thought, a label, a description. But is that you? Or is that something you do? Something you're called? A role you play? Take another breath. Maybe a judgment arises. I'm not good enough. I'm a fraud. I'm failing. Notice it. See it clearly. That's a thought too. A story. A belief learned long ago. But is it you? Or is it something you're aware of? Ask again, more gently this time. Who is aware of these thoughts? Who is watching the roles, the judgments, the labels? Notice the space between the thought and the awareness of the thought. There's a thought, I'm not enough. And there's an awareness that sees the thought. That awareness, it doesn't judge. It doesn't compare. It doesn't need to prove anything. It simply is. That awareness is closer to who you are than any label, any role, any story. You are not your achievements. You are not your failures. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that holds all of this. And that awareness never needed to prove anything. It's already whole, already here, already enough. Take one more breath. Just rest in that awareness for a moment. Nothing to figure out, nothing to fix. Just this, being aware, being present, being here. That's it. You just practiced. You experienced, even if just for a moment, your being beyond any identity. And you can return to this anytime that voice arises. Oh, that's a thought about who I am. But I am not that thought. I am the awareness watching it. Now, a practice for tonight and every night this week when you're lying here in bed and that voice starts speaking. This practice is simple but profound. It's about offering yourself a different message. Not as a replacement thought, but as an anchor, a reminder, a truth. When you're lying here and the voice says, "You're a fraud. You don't deserve this. They're going to find out. Try this." Place a hand on your heart. Feel the warmth there. Feel your heart beating. It's been beating since before you achieved anything. It'll keep beating regardless of what you accomplish. Your heart doesn't need to prove its worth. It just beats. Now say this, silently or out loud. I exist. That's enough. Your mind will protest. It'll say, no, it's not. You have to prove it. You have to earn it. You have to be more. Notice that protest. Don't fight it. Just gently return to the phrase, I exist. That's enough. Then If you're ready, expand it. Say, I am not my achievements. Breathe, I am not my mistakes. Breathe, I am here. I am breathing. I am enough. This isn't about believing it immediately. Your mind has decades of conditioning saying the opposite. But this is about offering yourself a different possibility. Like water slowly wearing down stone. Like a plant growing through concrete. Persistent, gentle, patient. Every time you say it, you're creating a new pathway in your brain. Eventually, that frightened part of you, the part that learned worth is conditional, will start to hear it. Will start to consider, maybe I don't have to audition for my own life. Maybe I'm allowed to just be. Try it now. Hand on your heart. I exist. That's enough. Take your time. I am not my achievements. I am not my mistakes. I am here. I am breathing. I am enough. Good. You don't have to get it perfect. You don't have to feel a sudden shift. You just practice the most revolutionary act, choosing kindness over judgment, offering yourself what you've been seeking from others, permission to simply be. Now, one more practice. This one is for tomorrow morning. Before you check your phone, before you start the day, before you begin performing, sit for 5 minutes. Just 5. You don't need to meditate perfectly. You don't need to empty your mind. Just sit and ask yourself this question. What's one thing I can do today from enoughness, not from fear? Not, what do I have to do to prove myself? Not, what will make people think I'm competent? But what would I do if I already knew I belonged? Maybe it's speaking up in that meeting, not because you have to prove you're smart, but because you have something genuinely worth sharing. Maybe it's asking for help, not because you're incompetent, but because collaboration is how humans work. Maybe it's saying no to something, not because you're lazy, but because you're honoring your limits. Maybe it's taking a break, not because you've earned it through productivity, but because you're a human being who needs rest. One thing, from enoughness, not fear. From I already belong, not I have to prove I belong. And notice how different that feels. Notice the quality of energy behind it. Fear-driven action feels tight, constricted, exhausting. Enoughness-driven action feels spacious, clear, sustainable. You're not trying to defend anything. You're just showing up as you are. And that's enough. Tomorrow morning, before your day begins, ask that question. One thing from enoughness today, then do it. So now you have 3 practices. 1, the inquiry. Who am I really, beyond the stories and roles? Use this when you're spiraling in self-judgment, when the imposter voice is loud, when you need to step back and see clearly. 2, the enoughness affirmation, hand on heart. I exist. That's enough. Use this at night when you're lying here and the voice won't stop. when you need an anchor, a reminder, a different message. 3. The morning question. One thing from enoughness today. Use this to start your day from center, not from fear, to act from wholeness, not from lack. You don't have to do all 3. Pick one, the one that feels most needed right now. And trust this, you don't have to get it perfect. You're not performing these practices. You're just trying, and trying is enough. Every time you notice the voice and choose differently, that's a victory. Every time you offer yourself kindness instead of criticism, that's growth. Every time you show up as yourself instead of who you think you should be, that's freedom. This is the path, not a straight line, not always easy, but possible, real, available to you right now. Now, let's bring all of this together. Let's integrate what you've learned and move gently toward rest. Let's gently bring this all together now. Tonight, you heard 3 stories. Jordan, who discovered that the voice judging her wasn't hers, it was her father's voice from childhood still echoing. Marcus, who learned that certainty is an illusion, and that's not a problem. It's just the truth of leadership, of being human. Aisha, who realized her difference wasn't a deficit, but her unique offering, that she didn't need to erase herself to belong. All 3 stopped trying to defend a fixed identity. And in that release, they found freedom. You learned the Buddha's teaching, that there is no fixed, unchanging self to prove. You're not a solid thing. You're a process, a becoming, constantly changing, constantly evolving. And your worth, it's not something you earn through achievement. It's inherent. You exist. That's the only requirement. You practiced 3 things tonight. You inquired, who am I beyond the stories? And you experienced, even briefly, the awareness that holds all thoughts, but isn't defined by any of them. You placed a hand on your heart and offered yourself a different message. I exist. That's enough. Not as a replacement belief, but as a gentle reminder, a seed planted. And you asked, what's one thing I can do tomorrow from enoughness, not fear? A question that shifts everything. These aren't just ideas you learned, they're tools you practiced, seeds you planted, and seeds grow slowly in their own time beneath the surface where you can't see them. Now, here's something important. You don't need to remember every word I've said tonight. You don't need to get this right. You don't need to practice perfectly. That would just be another way of performing, another way of trying to prove you're good enough. Your body already knows how to rest. Your being already knows you're enough. We just covered it up with voices, with demands, with the belief that you had to earn your existence. So let it all go now. The teachings, the practices, the stories, even these words, just let it all go. You're not holding on to anything tonight. You're releasing. You're allowing. You're simply being here, in this bed, in this body, In this breath, nothing to prove, nowhere to be, no identity to defend. You're already home. Feel your body now. Really feel it. Notice how heavy it's becoming. Your head sinking deeper into the pillow rising to meet you, holding you. Your shoulders releasing down, away from your ears. All that tension, all that holding, letting go. Your arms heavy at your sides. So heavy they feel like they're melting into the mattress. Your chest rising and falling. Each breath a little slower than the last. You don't have to control it. Your body knows how to breathe. It's been breathing since before you achieved anything. It'll keep breathing regardless of what you accomplish. Your breath doesn't need to prove its worth. It just breathes. Your legs heavy now, like anchors, pulling you down into rest. Your feet releasing any last holding. Your whole body held by the bed, held by the earth beneath you, held by something larger than achievement, larger than identity, held by existence itself. Each breath a little quieter, each thought a little softer. The darkness around you not empty, but full of safety, full of permission, full of the truth you've been seeking. You're enough. You always were. You always will be. Not because of what you've done, because of what you are. A living, breathing part of this vast, unfolding universe. And that's enough. That's always been enough. Let the night hold you now. Let everything soften. Let everything slow. Safe. Held. Enough. May you rest deeply tonight. May you wake tomorrow remembering you don't have to earn your place in this world. May you know deep in your bones that you belong, not because you proved it, but because you're here. May you see yourself clearly, not as a fixed identity to defend, but as a process, unfolding, becoming free. May you hear that voice, you're not enough, and recognize it's not your voice. It never was. May you carry yourself gently. May you speak to yourself as you would speak to someone you deeply love, with patience, with kindness, with the truth. You exist. That's enough. You have always been enough. May you forgive yourself for being human in a world that demands perfection. May you release the weight of proving, of performing, of pretending. May you rest in the knowing your worth is not your achievement. Your value is not your certainty. Your belonging is not your performance. You are allowed to be exactly as you are, uncertain, imperfect, learning, growing, human, and enough, always enough. There's nothing left to do now, no one left to impress, no identity left to defend. No worth left to prove. You already belong. You always did. The striving can stop. The The performing can end. The fear can rest. Just this breath, this moment, this soft, dark, safe space. You can stop now. Stop trying. Stop wondering if you're good enough. Stop waiting to be found out. You're not a fraud. You're not inadequate. You're not an imposter. You're a human being doing your best, and your best is enough. It's always been enough, so let it go, all of it. The worry, the judgment, the voice. Let it go. Just be here as you are, breathing, resting, enough. Sinking now. Down, deeper, your body so heavy, so still, your breath so quiet, barely there, soft, safe, held. You belong here, in this bed, in this moment, in this existence. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to earn it. You just are. And that's enough. Rest now. Sleep. You're enough. You've always been enough. Let go. Rest well, friend.